Hi guys, this is RoseErifnosi here. We're going to be playing the Beginner's Guide today, and I have to tell you this is probably one of my favorite games ever now. We're going to be taking this a little bit back to my roots where I like to go through and analyze things. We're going to have some discussions. I'm going to give you as many insights as I possibly can because that is the kind of game that this is. I highly recommend watching this game both, as your first experience, watching this blind, and even maybe if you have already watched the game itself. All that I ask is, if you have any ideas, interpretations, leave them at the bottom because I would absolutely be thrilled to see what you guys think. But also, don't leave any spoilers of any kind down below in the comments. Otherwise, I will need to disable comments. So, loving this game. Played it more than once. I played it twice, and then I played it again with my best friend Dave on Refney. But let's just go ahead and jump into it, and I really want you guys to play this with me, and I want us to experience this together. I turned the volume up a bit because audio is very important. Audio is in fact on. Controls, standard controls, fantastic. Good thing they told us that, man.
Hi there. Thank you very much for playing the Beginner's Guide. My name is Davey Reedon. I wrote The Stanley Parable, and while that game tells a pretty absurd story, today I'm going to tell you about a series of events that happened between 2008 and 2011. We're going to look at the games made by a friend of mine named Coda. Now, these games mean a lot to me. I met Coda in early 2009 at a time when I was really struggling with some personal stuff, and his work pointed me in a very powerful direction. I found it to be a good reference point for the kinds of creative works that I wanted to make. So just to start you off, this is, I think, the first game he ever made. It's a level for Counter-Strike. You can walk around here, by the way. And mostly it's just Coda learning the basics of building a 3D environment. But what I like is that even though he starts from the simple aesthetic of a desert town, he then scatters these colorful abstract blobs and impossible floating crates around the level. And of course, it destroys the illusion that this actually is a desert town, and instead this level becomes a kind of calling card from its creator. It's like a reminder that this video game was constructed by a real person. And it kind of makes you wonder, what was going through his head as he was building this? This is what I like about all of Coda's games. I mean, not that they're all fascinating as games, but that they are all going to give us access to their creator. I want us to see past the games themselves. I want to get to know who this human being really is. And that's exactly what we're going to do here.
Okay.
So, it's 2008, Coda starts making these games, and he never releases any of them. He doesn't put them onto the internet, he just makes them and then immediately abandons them, and they sit on his computer forever. And I think he really understood this image of himself as a recluse. At one point, he jokingly renamed his computer's recycling bin to Important Games Folder. So, this was just how he worked. He tended to crank them out one after the other without even really pausing to try to understand what he had just made, until suddenly one day, he just stopped. In 2011, that was it. He made his last game, and then he hasn't made another one since. And that's why I've taken this opportunity to gather all of his work together, is because I find his games powerful and interesting, and I'd like this collection to reach him, to maybe encourage him to start creating again. And if the people like you who play this also happen to find his work interesting, then I'm sure it'll just send that much stronger of a message of encouragement to Coda. So thanks for joining me on this. If you have a particular interpretation that I haven't mentioned here, or if you just need to get in touch, you can email me at daveywreden@gmail.com. Okay, that's about it for introduction. Let's take a look at Coda's first proper game. As each game is loading, I'll show you the date that it was completed. This first one was made in November 2008.
Now this game is very narrative heavy, so I'm gonna try to find opportunities to talk as much as possible, because that's what's really gonna make this Let's Play different from the many not walkthroughs really, but completions of this game that are out there on YouTube. I find a lot of videos out there playing this game as just a straight walkthrough, but if any of you actually are familiar with me, my Let's Plays, and my style, you will realize quite quickly that this is right up my alley, because this is the kind of thing that I do. He says in the very first level, we're going to be taking a look at the person behind the games. And he flat out even says exactly pretty much what I always say in my Let's Plays. If you have a particular interpretation that I haven't thought of, feel free to send it to me. But I find this really amazing. This is basically I don't even know if I want to call the Beginner's Guide a game. It's almost like a documentary of some description, and I find it absolutely amazing. This is unparalleled in any other game that I've seen before, and it's amazing. And originally I thought that the fact that it was made by the creator of the Stanley Parable, you know, I was expecting something completely different, but honestly this just seems like it was you know, created by a huge fan. Whoa.
Whisper machine active. Shift destruction imminent.
All
this
right,
game
now.
is called Escape from Whisper, and it's one of the more generic games you'll see from Coda.
So this is very different. Or, well, no, not at this point. I mean, the only difference is that, you know, this is actually, it's different in the way that this was entirely created by Coda, whereas the other one was just a, you know, a Counter-Strike level. No gun or anything.
Security call breach.
Now we have a gun.
Hostile alien life form inbound.
It kinda looks like this game was abandoned mid-development. For instance, you have this gun, which you'd think would indicate that there are supposed to be monsters or enemies somewhere, but then clearly there are no enemies anywhere. You can't even reload the gun when you run out of bullets. But ultimately we don't really know. Maybe Coda thought that actually it was complete the way that it is. And I think that we should talk about his games for what they are, rather than for what they're not.
Enemy force neutralized.
So what I really like the most about this quote-unquote
I
game,
love how you can see the bottom of the universe from this road.
that's amazing, and keep in mind that a lot of these things, going back to the floating rocks that are on fire, throughout this progression, you're going to be noticing more and more refined games coming from Coda. And this is just, you know, another indication that, I mean, the gun literally does not reload. There's no sound effect for the gun, and you will gradually see throughout his games a increased skill in the games that he's making too. I like this. That's kind of cool. But also another thing that I love probably more than anything about this is that, oh, I don't want to go in there yet, is that basically, what's his name, Davey? He's approaching these games that Coda is making as art, and I think that that has a lot of truth to it. Video games as a form of art, like an artistic outlet, and that's super cool to me. That's super cool, getting to know the person behind their work and why. So we're gonna do that. Davey and I are both gonna do that.
Apparently this space station has a labyrinth on it.
You're damn right it does.
Sure, I don't know. There's really no reason for it that I've ever been able to discern, so in the interest of time,
No, don't do it! Oh my god, I solved it! Oh my god, I solved it! I fucking solved it! Yes!
Okay, this is the part that's interesting.
Totally didn't know
The game
that.
has this narrative about the whisper machine and how it has to be turned off, and then you get to the engine room.
Hey, you there, in the engine room. You could
That's
save
me.
us all. That beam is powering the whisper machine. We could disrupt it by introducing a great enough heat signature. If your body could stop the beam. It's so much to ask, but for all of our lives, would you do it? Could you give yourself?
Now think about this. These games were created as what I wholeheartedly believe as a form of therapy, or a form of, like I said, artistic outlet. And why we're
This
seeing...
is not a branching point, unfortunately. The only option is to step into the beam.
Thank you, Davey. As I was saying, these weren't intended to be seen by anyone. I can only imagine that maybe Coda changed his mind later, or maybe Davey is just, you know, going through and showing off his work for the world. But at the time that this was made solely for Coda's benefit. And what this right here is all about is about self-sacrifice. And it seems like this is some kind of doomed space station. We don't know what the Whisper Machine is, but essentially, you know, the little female voice overhead was saying that will we be willing to sacrifice ourselves to save, curiously, the rest of the space station and all the people on it that we've seen no indication of so far. So what did this do for Coda? What did this decision of self-sacrifice do for Coda? And also keep in mind that there's no alternative. He made this game making it seem as though it's the decision of self-sacrifice for the greater good, when there actually isn't any other choice. And I find that just remarkably interesting. So what we're going to do is do exactly that. And we die.
Let me pause here for a second. What you just experienced, stepping into the beam and then dying, is probably what Coda had initially intended when he was developing this level. But when he first compiles and plays it, something goes wrong. There's a bug somewhere. And this is what happens instead.
Okay, so we're back. This is so apparently now we are back in version 1. I don't know if what we just did was like the final version of the game, or if that was Davey's interpretation of what he thought Coda had intended to do before he abandoned the game. But apparently this is version 1. And we're floating! Where's the bottom of the universe? Where is it? There it is!
The beam causes you to start floating. And this is an important moment for him. Because yes, this is technically a glitch, but Coda identifies something human about it. Like how small it makes you feel in the face of this larger chaotic system. Or this floating could be the afterlife, a peaceful place, juxtaposed against all of the hysteria that you've just had to traverse. I don't even know. I have no idea what he was thinking, but what's clear is that after making this, something lodges itself in his brain. He wants to do more of these really weird and experimental designs. So he stops work on this and moves on to a stream of tiny little games that go in all sorts of directions. Let's go ahead and take a look at the first game he made after leaving this one behind.
Okay, now, the past was behind her. Before Davey starts talking, I just want to say, his interpretation of the floating seems a little bit stretched to me. I'm a little bit weirded out. I don't really understand how he was able to, like,
So try walking backwards.
Yeah. How he's able to get that much out of, like, the glitch of him floating. And it's kind of weird. Like, is that even possible as a glitch? So that's always been really weird to me. That's probably the weirdest level. And, because you don't know, I cannot move forward or turn.
In this game, you can only walk backwards.
In this game, we can only walk backwards, guys. The past was behind her. What?
So it's a short and relatively minimalist experiment combining motion and narrative. It is less advanced than the previous game, but actually it seems to be more focused, more complete. Coda's trying to give it a unique voice rather than simply basing it on a pre-existing trope.
So I played this this a few different times now, but I never actually really thought about these words on the wall because I was too busy focusing on the strange mechanic. But the past was behind her, which is where it is for most people. But the future could not be seen. Why does the future keep changing? And as you can see, the room that we were just in changed. And honestly, I don't understand this. I don't understand this game. This one, right here. When she stops and looks, it becomes clear. If you guys have an idea of what he's trying to say about this imaginary girl or whatever, let me know, because I don't understand it. But if the future is always behind her, no, at the very beginning, we already established the past is behind her. Door. How will she find the strength to confront it?
It's a short little thought, it says what it wants to say, and then it ends. Didn't need anything more than that. Which to me is why it works, because it gets out quick. Okay, next one.
Now this is disconcerting to me. You can only see within a small field of view, and the little crickety night insect thing is a little bit... I keep being afraid that I'm gonna run into something horror-based. You are now entering. I can't go left or right. I can only go forward. Well, I can go backwards, but...
And that's it. Okay, the meaning of this game won't be clear just yet. Please be patient with me for a few more games, and I promise you'll see what makes it interesting.
Not a lot to go off of that one there.
Oftentimes, Coda would put bizarre titles like this one at the start of his games. I wish I'd known him at the time that he was making these early games. He would really only talk to me about his work as he was making it. Once he stopped work on a game, like, that was it. It was dead to him. And I don't agree with that at all, but what are you gonna do?
So let's check around here.
I know it's tempting, but there's actually nothing over here. Sorry.
And he's right, there is actually nothing over here. What I think is amazing integration into the game is that his narrative is really well connected to what you're actually doing in these levels or these games. It gives you this incredible sense that he's right here watching you play, and as you get to certain points, it's like he knows what you're doing. It's amazing. When you perform different actions, you know, he'll make comments about it, and that's just incredible. It completely adds to the effect, I guess, the narrative effect. So let's go up here.
Once you've been slowed to an absolute crawl, the door at the top of the stairs opens. So why, if Coda's not showing these games to anyone, why bother opening the door at all? Well, to show you, I'm modifying the game here so that when you press enter, it'll bring you back up to full speed so you can enter the door for yourself.
Just so you guys know, hitting enter before he does that does nothing. Once again, it makes it seem as if he is right here playing alongside you. It's not like we're just objectively playing, you know, a game sitting here at your computer desk. So that's just really, really awesome. Stand on an X staring at a bear for 3 hours. Game filled with chairs except one chair is floating. You construct a wall, the wall is destroyed, you are given a medal. A button you press to stop the chaos.
A room that's warm and nice and filled with little ideas for games.
A series of lavish manuals come with the game, giving you incorrect instructions.
Coda would often tell me that he didn't mind if people thought of him as cold or distant. He said that he knew that he was actually a vibrant and compassionate person, but that it takes time to really see that. It can be a very slow climb to get there.
take a second, pause the video, and read some of these. They're really interesting and amusing. Ready, set, fish! Fish! Alright, while Davey gives me a second to talk, I want to say, so, Davey was asking us if this game was never meant to be played by somebody, why make it functioning in getting to a room that you can't reach, that you had to basically hack to get into, in, like, this door that's welcoming, clearly letting you know that that's where your destination is. And I totally believe that that is basically a room representing his muse that has all of his ideas, all of his creativity. And I'm thinking maybe the fact that you're unable to reach it was representing maybe a writer's block or something similar, maybe that he was experiencing or something like that. So that's what it seems like to me. Ready, set, fish. Ah! Okay.
Well, this is new for Coda. It's an actual puzzle. Go ahead and see if you can solve it.
Alright. This is, not a very long, game, but in the interest of time, because time is something I'm short on these days, I'm just gonna perform the solution. I'm not gonna dick around and pretend I don't know it. So basically, get inside. There's like some fog and stuff. The switch is actually on the back.
Don't forget that solution, because we're going to see this puzzle again soon. We're gonna see it a lot. So that seems to be it, right? You walk down a corridor, you solve a puzzle, you get to the end. Simple enough. Alright, now I'm going to modify the game again, so that when you press enter, it'll remove all of the walls from this room.
Let's press enter. And look at that. Where did we start anyway? Over there? Look at all of that rooms.
How about that? There was more to it than we had any way of knowing. I actually find it funny that this game comes after the Stairs game, since they essentially convey the opposite idea. So, in the Stairs game, a dull exterior concealed a rich interior. And then, in this level, a dull interior hides this fantastic outer world. Either way, I think that the point is the same, is that most of the time you don't get to know what you're missing, or even that you're missing anything. That's not your role as a player. So if your role here is not to understand, then what is it?
I don't know about that interpretation, but I think, you gonna say anything, Davey? I don't know if that really resounds with me, but I think that kind of the point of both of those games, aside from the whole, that's where he accesses his, like, bank of creativity in the one before that. But it kind of seems like, I mean, Davey already said that Code is a recluse. He doesn't show his games to anything, and it doesn't really matter if people see him as cold and uncaring on the outside, because he knows that he's a very compassionate person. And I think that that is completely symbolic, the last game that we played, because you go from point A to point B, there's no deviation, but when you actually have the ability to look and see outside those walls, there's so much that you're missing. And I think that that's talking about him as a person, kind of keeping people at a distance. And on the inside, he really is very elaborate and intricate and complicated, and there's so much more to him than what he actually presents to the world. And this looks like the one of the previous levels we already went to. You are now exiting! But where did I go to, and where am I coming from?
Aha. So, this, combined with the entering game from earlier, tells us that Coda believes his games are connected somehow. It could even be that the stairs game and the puzzle game are literally connected in between this and the entering game. There's a bigger picture that all of his games are meant to play a role in, some larger meaning that we won't be able to grasp until we've seen all of them. And once we have, we can step back and start to understand what exactly that bigger picture is.
March 2009. So this is the year after you started making The Great and Lovely Descent. Oh, cool. So what I think about the you are now entering and you are now exiting, I think that there was maybe a phase that he was going through, or a point that he was trying to make. Kind of like what Davey was saying, is his games are connected. I'm not so sure if I can say at this point whether all of his games are connected, but basically those games that were in between the signposts were all connected in the same way, like maybe they were a story that they were telling. So I don't know what that might be, but basically you are now entering. Maybe it was a phase of his life, maybe it was an issue that he was thinking about, struggling with. I have no idea, but basically when you finish those levels and you get to the you are now exiting, that was the closure. That was basically he had finished telling his story, or telling what he wanted to say about those games in between. So right now we are in the infinite nothing of whiteness. Oh, I can actually walk backwards. Oh, okay. So, oh, I hit an invisible wall. All right. So here we have some kind of, looks like a farmhouse to me, actually.
Let's talk about video game development for a second.
Which I know nothing about.
Every video game runs on what's called an engine, which determines what the game can and cannot do. So in other words, the engine is a set of tools for game development. To make all of these games, Coda is using an engine called Source. Like all engines, Source has certain things that it does well, and it has certain things that it does poorly. One of the things that it does very well is boxy linear corridors. That's why so many of Coda's games are set in these large, flat, empty rooms, is just because he's working with what the engine does well.
Okay, so
the tools available to the creator shape what kinds of creative work they're going to end up making.
And
you might
limits.
Consider paying attention to the architecture in Coda's games, to notice how they seem to stem from an engine that's very good at producing linear, boxy corridors.
And blocks, yeah, you can definitely see that. This is called the Streetwise Fool. It's kind of like a cafe. I've never been able to make any sense of why it's called the Streetwise Fool. If you have any ideas, let me know. Oh, balls. Nothing around the back. Oh, secret door! No, unfortunately. So, right here, we're just meant to be kind of making note that everything is, well, very squarish and boxy. Ooh, I really like the carpet, actually. Whoa! Sorry. Jumpy. Oh! We can go in here! Excuse me, guys. Gotta take a pee. But notice how the game... Ah! I'm stuck. Games, textures are being more refined. More details. Really like the carpet, actually. Ooh, can I... Aha! Aha! Ha! Oh, nothing. Sorry. Complete contrast to what was basically above. No textures whatsoever. A little bit of color. So basically, this is a platforming puzzle. You can actually jump and do the balls. Do the platforming all the way down, but since I suck at that, I fall every time. which is fine because there's no fall damage. Guess that's fast mode. I can't go over here? Ah, I wanted to look around the back. Okay, invisible-ish wall. Rooms are getting bigger, but just listen to the ambient sound. It's so foreboding, and it's so ominous. It's so lonely. It's just, oh god. First time I played this just scared the shit out of me. Looks like we're in some kind of like stall cell thing. Alright, I can't go left or right. Only option is to get inside the cell. Now, I don't... this is a prison? Prison block, maybe?
This prison, funny enough, in Coda's original design, the doors stayed shut for a full hour before letting you go. If you don't mind, I think we're gonna skip that.
Now, what would be the point of that? I don't really understand. So, would he create these games, develop these games, and then go back and play them himself, or was the point of the games that he was creating simply the creation process? That's really interesting. I actually, I prefer to believe that he would create these games, and it was kind of a therapeutic release to him. And I like to think that he would actually,
This is something that he and I used to argue about a lot. You know, whether a game ought to actually be playable, whether it means anything if no one can get through it. And I would always defend that, you know, all this work goes into the game, why not make it playable and accessible? And so we just got into heated arguments over it, and there was one time that after one of these conversations, he went home, and a day or two later, he sent me a zip file entitled Playable Games that was full of hundreds of individual games, each of which was just an empty box that you walked around in and nothing else. Believe me, I played every single one of those just to find out if there was like a gag hidden somewhere. There wasn't.
Trolled! I love how he says that, because two things clicked in my mind. I was like, hot damn, that is some dedication, going through every single game, and I'm actually really disappointed that there was no gag, or there was no secret Easter egg of anything to find in them. What was I saying before? So Davey makes it sound like really all that Coda did was develop the games and like you said, not make them playable. I love to entertain the idea that he would go through and actually play his own games. That sounds, you know, pretty interesting to me. And if that really were the case, what would be the point behind sitting in the cell for an hour? Maybe it's kind of referencing his seclusion. Maybe his desire for just, you know, the solitary companionship of himself. I could be completely wrong, and he might have just, you know, put that in the game and then never played it. You know, that's completely entirely possible as well. But damn, that's some making a game playable. Now that definitely makes it sound as if Coda created the games and then was done with them. He got out of it whatever it was he needed to get out of it without even making them playable. But at least we know at some point these games were shared with Davey, and I wonder why he would share them with Davey if they weren't playable. But then again, Davey ended up making them playable because we can tell he actually does some modifications to the game himself, because I think that on a certain level he realizes and understands that there's more to the game than what Coda created it to actually function as.
It's the puzzle again, with the exact same solution as the last time.
Alright guys, if you don't mind, I'm actually going to check some volume levels. I'm going to see about my hard drive space. I will be back shortly. Hopefully you're enjoying. Leave a like or a comment below. Let me see how you're enjoying the Let's Play. Thanks!